Good morning, everyone, and
Good
welcome
morning.
to TSS. Such a summer day, and today hopefully we're gonna have some showers because it's been very, very hot this past few days. So, hi, Tanya. It's nice to have all of you. We have a few new faces. Welcome to TSS. And today I'll be doing the opening readings from the book Happy Days from Joana de Angelis and Givaldo Franco. Listen calmly whenever you are invited to do so. Let the other person complete his thoughts. Do not jump to certainly incorrect conclusions. Not everyone can express himself quickly or clearly. So listen cheerfully. Ignore misstatements and poor choices of words in order to understand what the other is trying to say. If someone accuses you, search for the root of wrongdoing and get rid of it. Dialogue shall always happen without bitterness, leaving a positive balance. If he clarifies something for you or teaches you something, absorb the lesson. If he is blaming someone, lessen the intensity of the offense with expressions of comfort to the offended party. So let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our guiding light, and to all the spirits present here today, the incarnate and discarnate ones. And let's be thankful of being gathering here today under Jesus' name, so we can learn a little bit more of the lessons He left to us, of the teachings we are about to hear by Marco. And we ask all the good spirits present here today to elevate Marco thoughts so his mind can be clear, so we can absorb more of Jesus' teachings. And so be it. And Marco will be presenting to us the art of forgiveness. Thank you, Marco.
Okay. So again, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. For all of you who are following us online, thank you for coming and joining us. So today we're going to be talking, as we heard in the passages that we read this morning, and also what Sandra just presented to us, that we're going to be talking about the art of forgiveness. Right. So the idea behind calling this the art of forgiveness is really, if you think about art in general, right? Let's say when we're thinking about a painting, or someone who's composing, or someone who's creating something, right? So think about the process of getting there, right? It's not automatic, right? It's not something that you naturally born maybe with, but even in that cases, you have to develop it, right? You have to put some effort into it, right? You have to dedicate yourself towards that goal. Like, you have to improve, you have to have discipline, right? The really, really well-known composers and artists that we see throughout the world today, what we don't see is like how much effort is and work, right, is involved behind the artistic creation, right, in that case, right? So is some sort of a sublime essence to it. It's something that is achievable, but it's also beautiful at the same time, right? It's something that is difficult to comprehend from a distance, but maybe easier when you get close to it. So there's all this amazing characteristics of art, right? That I think we can basically transport all of that into forgiveness, which is similar in a way, right? So what we're going to be talking about today, we're trying to put the different optics into the whole thing. So of course we're going to be talking about, it's important to forgive, right? Yeah, like we all know that, right? And I think we can be talking about the importance of forgiveness for the next 5,000 years, and we still may not be able to get all of it, right, into our daily lives. But what I thought is that maybe if we do it a little bit different and think about the process of forgiving, right? So we understand kind of the steps of what we have to do, maybe in the effort and the challenges and to reach that sublime, beautiful essence of perfection, right? Which is the basis of forgiveness. Maybe if you focus on that, it's going to be a little bit easier for us to bring it back to our daily lives, right? So I try to do that quite often when I'm talking in Spiritism, but also when I'm in my job and when I'm teaching at university. I really try to break down this concept in something that's a lot more tangible and like a different perspective, right? So let's see if we can do that today, okay? So starting with the basics then. So one of the sentences that I like a lot, like as an introduction to this topic is when Jesus obviously incarnated here with us and he's going through the entire process in which he's being, obviously feeling this physical consequences, right, of this punishments of being a perfect spirit, which is quite that makes no sense, right? When you think about we as a society, what we were doing to him at that time. But he says, like the very last minute, right? He says, Father, forgive them, right? For they do not know, right, what they were doing, right? I think that is such a nice kind of wrap up to that story, right? At that tail end of that story, because what he's really saying is like, listen, see, look at what they've done. So he's telling us that, like, he's actually obviously, referring to projecting as a prayer to the Creator, but the reality is that he's talking to all of one of us, right? Because I'll tell you something interesting. So there you go. Those guys are really punishing physically Jesus as much as possible, right? And we know that the thorns, the this and that, the beating, the carrying the cross, and all sorts of things. All this bloody, kind of painful images that we can possibly remember at that time, right? And then he comes to us and says, "Yeah, no, forgive them because they really don't know what they're doing." Obviously, he's not saying that, God, you got to forgive them. No, he's already forgave them before they started, right? Because Jesus knew already, like when he was coming, who was going to be involved in what and what was going to be happening, right? So he had all that plan already. But he's talking to us is that he's saying that you guys should forgive this too. And I'll tell you why. So Kardec, which is an interesting story. So Kardec, he goes into so there's a passage in this book very interesting called Letters and Chronicles by Brother X, where he describes by translate mediumistic by Chico. He describes a visit Kardec had to the Umbral when he was writing the Spirit's book, right? When he was partially separated from his body, he was kind of sleeping, right? He was taken there. So Kardec, so I think that was an important step of his preparation to write the book, because he goes into the Umbral. So obviously he's seeing all this dark imagery, right? Kind of physical punishment, just like, something that's really, really materialistic in a way, right? Smells and pain and fire and all those things that we can possibly imagine as an Umbral, right? And then he's asking he's asking, his mentors at the time, right, taking him, and he's like, so who are we going to be seeing here? So are we going to be seeing here the guys that were involved in the crucifixion of Jesus? Because if there's an Umbral, these guys are going to be there, right? Can't imagine something worse than that, right? The mentor's like, yeah, they're not here. None of them. They're all gone. They've learned, move on, a long time ago, right? Oh, well, we're going to see the Roman tyrants, right? Those really horrible people, right? Caligula, right? We're going to see all of them. They're like, no, they're not here. They've learned, moved on. They're actually taking care of you guys by now, right? I know. Kardec answered that. So what about the persecutors of Jesus? Like, Like all the guys that really dedicated their whole incarnation to make Jesus suffer, right? I'm better going to find him here, right? No. Moved on, done. They didn't know what they were doing at the time. They've learned from that mistake, and they're way, way ahead in the evolutionary scale, right? And then he asked, so who's here? And then the mentor said, all of those that knew everything that Jesus told us, like knew God, knew the divine laws, the Christians, right? They're all here, just as they are right now, right? Because these are the people that knew exactly what the rules and everything was, and exactly, we got to forgive, we got to do all these things, and knowing all that, they had the responsibility of acting on it, right? And they're still stuck in that. They were not able to move on. These are the people that you're seeing here in the Umbral right now. The guys that you really thought were like doing the worst possible things, either they were really not fully aware what the consequences of what they're doing, or they've already moved on a long time ago, right? So that's kind of shocking to Kardec, right? As Brother X writes in the book, but definitely shocking for us, right? Because go back now to Jesus, what he's saying at the end is like, please forgive these people, right? They really don't know what they're doing. Please forgive. Now we're stuck on it as a society till today. There are other passages that are interesting, like similarly, if you think about spirits that were involved in the process of crucifixion, right, would still up to this day project this huge negativity towards them, right? And that, interestingly enough, is actually felt by those spirits till this day. Although those spirits are way, way evolved and ahead of us, right? Millions of years ahead of us in evolution, right? But it's still so stuck into that thing. We can't forgive. We cannot forgive. Like Jesus forgave them like ahead of time, right? Preemptively, we forgave them, right? And we're still stuck in that moment, right? We're still stuck in there in that time. So what are we talking about today? Exactly that process of like, how can we let it go, right? Learn from it and move on. That cycle. This is basic concept in psychology. This is a basic concept in your work. This is a basic concept in anywhere you go, right? Like if you're the type of guy in your job, get some sort of conflicting email and got upset about whatever happened in the meeting, and you don't let go, you're in trouble. You're gonna go, right? Because in a team, that does not work, right? So taking that perspective, like Spiritist perspective on that, for us now in relationships and life in general, it's very similar, right? So if someone somehow offended us or created a situation that we feel that impacted us negatively, right? So what do? We have a few options, right? So let's say option one, we got really, really upset, right? And we throw back at them exactly the energy that they threw at us, like a fight, right? Who's going to win in that scenario? Right? Think about it. No one. There are no winners in that scenario, right? So the second scenario is like, you get really, really upset, but you calm down, you take a perspective, say, well, maybe that's what happened. And even if you're not friends anymore, maybe if you're not the best friends, you're not going out for dinners anymore with that person, but you get rid of that negativity, sending that back. That's a good step forward, right? Because now, it's like, I forgive. Maybe you're not forgive completely yet, but at least you're trying to get rid of that reaction, right, to that moment. Do you want an example of that? Get a very angry email, 6 p.m. at work. What do? Do you reply in the next 5 minutes, or you take a break and reply the next day? Think about it. What is the most obvious thing to do, right? Reply the next day, isn't it? Because if you're that emotion, now try to picture yourself in that scenario and think about the emotions that are going through your mind right at that time when you get that email. That is exactly what you need to get rid of. That's exactly it. Hard to describe, right? But every person can feel that. Cecilia Meirelles wrote that one time. She said, she said, the charity, or I don't remember the exact word, but charity is one of those things that it is so hard to explain, but it's so easy to feel. That's the kind of same idea, right? Very hard to explain what that means because it's bringing from us thousands of years of experiences at that time. You kind of let it go, right? Of that vibration, right? So that anger, that reactivity, right? That explosion that was important for us to survive maybe when we were like 10,000 years ago, right? Like a flight or flight response. Like, you got to do this, right? Not anymore, right? You have to control that. But that is exactly the moment where you really have to work on, right? And if that energy continues, right, for years, oh boy, now it's going to manifest itself on you. Like, you're the one losing in the end. So if you don't forgive and let go of that, so if you don't let go of that energy, if you don't forgive the insult, right, and you don't mend it, right, that's going to be very hard, right, for you to continue pathway, right? So I have like 5 topics we're going to talk about today. First one is like, we're going to talk about forgiveness in general. When, how often, and what does that mean to forgive? Okay, so let's start with that. Okay. So, and everything I mentioned here is mostly from the Gospel according to Spiritism. Chapter 10 is a good start if you want to just read about it, and then from there I'll give you some other things we can talk about, right? But in chapter 10, and I'll read directly from the book here. So Kardec says, be patient, right? So now we're thinking about what we're talking about forgiveness, what that be patient means, right? So that's exactly that moment that I just described to you, right? If you don't have patience, to also accept that you may not be ready to forgive right away and instantaneously and perfectly. If you don't have the patience to understand that there's a process ahead of you, see, that's bad, right? Because then you start to question yourself and challenge yourself, like, why am I not doing this, right? There's a process, right? So he starts with be patient. So patience too is a form of charity. Isn't that true, right? Being patient to people around us, right? And it happens in the most silly things in the daily life, right? Let me give you a scenario, okay? And you don't need to tell me what you're going to do, but you can think about it, okay? So you drive in a 401, right? For those of you that are in line, 401 is a big highway, right? So you drive 401, there's like 5-6 lanes of traffic, right, side by side. And you're going in the left lane, which technically like is a passing lane, right? And there's one guy driving like half the limit of the speed in the left lane. Just one guy. And there's literally 200 cars behind it on the left lane. How would you feel? Don't need to answer. Just keep that emotion right there, because I don't want to explain. We're trying to keep it, spirits are helping us right now. So just take a deep breath, okay? Okay, so it does start with a little bit of patience, right? Now, am I saying that we're gonna just cool and stay there for the rest of our trip? No, that's not what we're saying. Everybody gets to move on, right? Even if there's a big thing in front of you that you have to deal with, right? But the part that we have to deal with is that how we feel about that, right? Do you think if I really start yelling inside my car for that guy, he's gonna move? We do that though, right? Isn't that crazy? Okay, let me think about the other one. If you think I drive really, really close to him, do you think he's gonna move? I don't think so. There's a good chance you're gonna cause an accident, right? That's not a good idea. But we do that, right? I know one. I'm gonna honk the hell out of it, right? Maybe he's gonna move, or maybe he's gonna get more upset and slow down even more. Right? It's 2 options, right? how about at some moment I realize that I can't change another person sometimes. So, okay, fine. I'm just going to slowly move to the other side, find another way to go around and kind of go, right? But we don't do that. We actually move to the other lane, squeeze by the other guy, hit the brakes, press the. It's like, we're not helping anyone, right? So it does starts with patience. And now, if you're patient enough to understand that you have to deal with what you were creating at that moment, it doesn't matter what the guy's doing, he's going to deal with his own consequences, right? Police is going to come, stop him one day, or maybe he'll get in an accident, or maybe he'll get a lot of negativity from a lot of people around him. I don't know. Right? But anyways, he will deal with his consequences of his actions. Like we have to deal with ours, right? So starting with patience, that's the first step. Now comes the forgiveness part, right? That's a tough one, right? Because there's a good chance that our vibrations towards that individual are not going to be the greatest, right? I can tell that, right? So what does forgive means in that scenario? Does it mean that I have to make him stop on the right lane, get out of the car and say, I totally forgive you for doing that? Makes no sense, right? So the key element of forgiveness in that moment is not getting to that mode, period, altogether. Protect yourself from getting into that insane scenario where you're really trying to change something you can't change and you get upset about it, right? That is really the essence of forgiveness at that time. And block that energy back to the guy. And maybe you can even get to one moment that you're going to say, Dear Lord, may you protect this individual, because he may actually find himself into a very bad situation doing that. May you, God, the Creator, help in clarifying his mind that there are rules in place to prevent this type of behavior. And may you, Lord, protect everyone around in this highway, because everyone here has a family waiting to go home. And no matter how upset and angry people are when they're here, we all need to get there safe. So be it. How many of you thought about that when I gave you the scenario first? You just say, yes, I need to talk to you because I need to learn. Just tell me. I'm going to have a one-on-one session with you because I don't, right? Because I'm not perfect. I'm far away from that. That's why I'm reading so much. That's why I'm here talking, because maybe when I'm talking here, I'm learning a little bit more, right? So that's all to talk about the patience part, right? And then Allan Kardec, going back to Allan Kardec, he continued, there's another kind of charity, however, that is much more burdensome. Like if we thought patience was the first one, right? And consequently more meritorious. So forgiving those whom God has placed into our path. That's the guy physically in front of us on the left lane, right? To be instruments of our suffering, to put our patience to our test. So not only you got to be patient, but the second step of that process, which Kardec is telling us through the spirits now, saying, spirits obviously guiding him, but he's saying, much more than that, now much more burdensome and much more challenging than that is actually realizing that this scenario is placed ahead of us to test us, not the other guy, right? He continues, and you can read this anytime as we're kind of, before bed kind of thing, because you're probably going to be connected to it. Life is difficult, I know, right? It is composed of 1,000 nothings, like things that are routine, right? Daily things that happen all the time, right? We charge as little pinpricks that end up hurting us. We can talk about relationships now, right? And see, the lecture is about forgiveness, right? But we're going to talk about that. Sorry. Okay, we're going to go tangentially now. So the little 1,000 nothings that happen on a daily life is it doesn't need to be a word or an action. It can be a thought, right? Because we can feel that, right? When you approach someone that has like a very negative thoughts towards you, you can tell from a distance, even before the person says a word, right? So how many thousands of nothings occur during our daily lives at work, home, whatever you are, wherever you are, that collectively act as like this little pinpricks. There's like you're constantly touching and bothering us, and to one moment we snap, and we don't know why we're snapping. It's like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm so stressed today, right? Because we're not paying attention to things that are happening routinely, like daily, little things, right? And we kind of push away a little bit in our mind, kind of pack it there, right? But we get bothered by it, right? But that's what the Spirit is saying, right? We must consider the duties imposed on us, the consolations and compensations we receive in return. And then we'll see that the blessings are more numerous than the sorrows. The burden seems less heavy when we look to heaven than we're broad bent towards the ground. Right? Oh, that's a big one. Okay. So he's telling us about, the spirits are now telling us, well, life is difficult. We know that, right? And not because it's unfair. It's because we did whatever we did to be in this scenario, right? And don't think too much about it because you may find something you don't want to know, right? But whatever it is, we are in the scenario we are right now. And there's all these things going on, all these tests, all the things that happen all the times, all the trials, because that's where we are, right? We are in this world that's still being tried. We're still going through expiations, right? And I know it's heavy burden. I know it's not easy, but the more you look up, in other words, the more you connect your thoughts to the Creator, right? Through the words and message of Jesus, the easier it gets, always. Right? And that's why Jesus, now going back to the first thing we said, that's why Jesus that sentence is so profound that he's now teaching us 2,000 years later that you got to know how to forgive in any scenario, including a scenario when someone is apparently making me suffer, which really I don't, but it's making me suffer because that's all they know. That's all they're capable of doing. They don't know how to deal with differences. They don't know how to understand love. They actually don't know what love is, right? I'm here to tell them that, and I'm showing love to these guys by loving them when they're actually hitting me with these nails. What a profound message. And then he's still touching us because he knew we're going to see that. We're going to say, those guys. Why are they doing that? Right? He's already telling us that 2,000 years ago. Like, you got to forgive. But as we don't forgive those, we still don't forgive people around us. We don't forgive the guy that's driving in front of us in the left lane. We have a hard time doing that. Right? And we're not even talking about other things that are more challenging than that. Okay? So he continues. Courage, my friends. Christ is your model. Obvious. Okay? He suffered more than any of you and had nothing for which to reproach himself, whereas you have your past to expiate and to strengthen you for the future. So that's in chapter 13 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So that's the Spiritist teachings, right? So we can definitely, have like an entire seminar of like 6 hours of just this part, right? With more examples. But we got to move on. We're going to talk about forgiveness there. Okay? Okay. So the next big question is when? So when should I forgive? And this scenario has obviously two options too, right? Let's summarize in two options. So you have an option where, you can just forgive right away and instantly. So you don't even connect to that negativity that you're creating, the angerness and everything that kind of isolates you from these energies that are flowing from above. Or you can kind of keep grinding it, right, for some time. Until one day that grinding process of that emotion gets so heavy that you either collapse or you forgive, right? And some people still don't forgive, right? So we are more towards the second option, right? Where we are more in the mode where some of us here are ready, you know what, I can't forgive. That's fine. there's something. I can't. Oh, there's not. But I can. I can understand the concept now, and I can work on it, right? But oh boy, it may take years for me to do that, right? That's fine. That's the process where we are. Now, if we shorten that period to minutes or to seconds, that is makes our life so much easier. And it's kind of almost like a selfish thought. Maybe I'm doing it for me. I don't know. But it is important to do that, right? So this is what Allan Kardec says in the Gospel, again, the chapter 10. In the practice of forgiveness and the good in general, right? There's more than one moral effect. There's also physical effect. So if you're not buying the idea that you need to forgive because it's a good thing, let's talk about the physical thing, okay? We know that death does not free us from our enemies, right? Spiritists teach us that, right? We're eternal, right? We'll live on as a spirit, either here in a body or not in a body, right? Or in another planet, or wherever you are, you're the same person, right? You are this collective, like almost like a book that you've been reading for so many incarnations, and you've been changing and evolving and learning for so many thousands of years, right? So consequently, from the point of view of one's future peace of mind, it is important to repair as quickly as possible the wrongs one committed against one's neighbor, and to forgive one enemy in order to eliminate before death all motives of dissension and all causes of ulterior animosity. So Kardec, incredibly wise here, is telling us, well, we are here in the Spiritist Center, so we kind of have at least a sense of what Spiritism is in general. Some of us have obviously read a lot about it and know a lot. Some of us don't know much, but the basic principle is very simple, right? We also learn to follow the law of love, which governs everything. We also understand that we are eternal beings and we're always the same, no matter where we are here or not, or in the body or not. So, in other words, if I have trouble with someone, I got to act fast, because when we discarnate, the problem gets worse now. Because now I don't have all this body to kind of hide and protect my thoughts, and people don't really see things. I can pretend to be a nice person still in this body. In the spiritual world, that doesn't work, right? Because you are like this walking blackboard of things written around you. So the spirits are going to look right inside of you and say, oh, that's what you're thinking. Oh, man, that's it. I can't hide. I can't pretend to be another person. It doesn't work that well, right? And whatever that animosity was there between me and someone else, now it's like plastered on my face. So when I meet that person, it's going to be like, okay, now we're at it, right? Now it's fight time, right? Obviously, there's an exaggeration, but the idea is it doesn't go away. Most likely gets worse. There's a very interesting book. It's called Eustachio. Eustachio is a book that tells like 14 incarnations of the same spirit. And in this book, Eustachio talks about his life since he was living in Europe thousands of years ago. And he goes through the process of incarnation like multiple times, right? And one thing that is quite interesting in that book is that he talks about his life incarnated, how he meets his friends and enemies, right? And then discarnated, what happens between his enemies and him, and then back again, and then discarnated, and then back again. So it's like a cycle, right? And it's such a perfect example of what Kardec is saying here, because some of his enemies, right, while discarnated, will do anything they can to make Eustachio's life worse, right, when they come back, because they're not forgiving, right? They're definitely not forgiving. They're killing each other every incarnation, basically. They kill each other in war, and then they kill each other as an accident, then they kill each other in a family fight, but they're always kind of like picking back on that same process, right? And forgiveness is not there at all, right? In this particular story of Eustachio, it took 14 incarnations for them to get over it, right? And then finally at the end, I'm not at the very end of the book, but then at the end, he comes in a way that he actually has to save the life of the other person. He does. And then when he does that, boom, that entire negativity kind of fades away between them, and they're finally grabbing hands again and walking together. Okay? So what Kardec is saying is very important, right? And it's a practical thing. So it's up for each one of us here, me included, to think about on a daily basis in a very objective way and say, okay, what are the things that I really have to deal with in this life? We should have a little understanding of what they are, right? And if life is perfect, again, I need to really talk to you afterwards because I need to learn that. But if there are issues in life that we gotta fix now, we need a plan, right? It doesn't mean that tomorrow I need to pick up the phone right away and say, hey, and try to fix it, because sometimes it doesn't work, right? There are problems that you can't fix with a phone call. And in that sense, you have to make some sort of amendments. You have to go a long way. You have to distribute back a really, really strong positive energy or action or thought or something towards that other side so you can mend that gap. Like Eustachio did, for example. He had to save someone's life, literally. Like Chico Xavier did, right? When the neighbor killed his dog, he went in there and bought something super nice, like a sewing machine to the neighbor, right? See, even that scenario, think about, we're talking about Chico Xavier. Come on. Like if the Chico had to have thoughts about buying, so how to fix and mend that problem, like consider me. Like, boy, I have to buy a whole city, right? It's like I have to literally, I don't know, maybe I'll have to collect 15 incarnations of buying stuff to get mending some of the stuff that I have in my baggage, right? Because Chico's a guy that coming in incarnated, he's already had a history as a spirit that is like, my God, he's so evolved. He's like so like there, right? But we can still do it, right? We can take from that what he taught us, like in a very practical way. Let's say, okay, what are we going to do today to really go after and fix these things that are hanging over our heads, right? That's what Kardec's saying, right? Is there a standardized plan for that? No. Like every person is different, every problem is different, every relationship is different, every action is different. Like, no, I cannot come here and say, this is the plan that every one of us is going to follow, right? But I can do something. I can say something. I can say that Jesus gave us a little math equation, right, to help out, right? So if you consider the law of love, right, and for every, so if you have, let's say, like some sort of a negative thing that happens, it's like a -1, right? So you get -1 in the equation, right? And you got to make it to the plus side. So if you just put like a +1 in there, it doesn't really work, right? If you do one thing positive and kind of try to kind of match it, like you still at a 0. 0 doesn't really help. That's the guy of the talents. Remember the guy of the talents in the parable? So, I'll give you 1 talent, and then you hide it and give it back that talent. It's like doesn't work, right? You just missed this crazy opportunity to do a lot of good things, right? So you got to do at least 2 things, like a 2 + 2, to make that kind of go on the positive side, right? So you really have to work hard. So Jesus is giving us that message. Say, I'll tell you, love one another, right? That is the maxim. That's the idea, right? And how we're going to do that? Lots of ways of doing it, right? Give an example. Well, if I can't reach the person, can't talk, far away, I don't know, if it's impossible for me to reach out, can I at least pray? It's like, yes, you can always pray, right? But not pray like, yeah, God, take this guy away from my life because I can't really deal with this. That's not praying. It's not like a curse. Like right? So that prayer, that actually is going to bring you back a lot of that same negativity, right? It's not going to help you, I can tell you that. Because when you're in the spiritual world, Kardec's saying here, you're going to meet that spirit again, and then you can't just say, please God, push this guy away from me, No, it's going to be an obsession. It's going to be all over you all the time, right? I have so many examples of that, right? Memoirs of a Suicide, for example. Like, think about that. like that group of spirit that just disincarnated, as going to a place where all those spirits have been through suicide. Think about the energy that's surrounding them, the visual perspectives that they have around them, right? And even in that scenario, you can see this little bright peaks of light coming through to help, and how you can transform with one thought by the act of helping another person, right? So in our daily lives, it's the same thing. So we can pray. We don't have to buy a sewing machine to everyone. That's not what Shiku's telling us, right? But really figure out ways that we can mend that. We can go, like, we have to make that step. Like, how many times I'm having these meetings of fraternal assistants and helping people, and then I'm gonna hear this, but they don't call me. Like, they never talk to me. Like, yeah, this is just a single problem in that sentence, though, which is a critical one, right? So how many times do we try to reach out, right? None. So that's like, you're like equal, right? So both sides are not reaching. That's not an excuse, right? Oh, but it's impossible to do anything, whatever. So at least send good vibrations. Start with that, right? If you're starting to send those good vibrations, you're going to create a bridge. You're going to create a connection of goodness, right? Of positivity that may one day you're able to physically get together. Oh, but I cannot help that person at all. Like, zero impossible. Okay, fine. So help a lot of people around you. Start with that. So you can start to transform yourself to get to a point that you're so transformed that now you're going to be able to really, really forgive that other person, right? And that's for forgiveness too, right? How many times we actually are the cause of all these things and we try to blame the other side? That never happens, right? Yeah, that happens more often than we think, right? So there has to be a two-way avenue, right? So that's the when. Do it right now. Okay. So Allan Kardec continues. So there are two quite different ways of forgiving, just to make it more complicated. And I'm not making this up. This is all Kardec saying. Okay. One is great, noble, truly generous, without ulterior motives, delicately sparing the self-esteem and susceptibility of one's opponent, even when he or she is completely to blame. So this is a scenario where you truly and honestly forgive without causing any harm, without putting the person down, without other motives at all. So you just forgive, and that's it. You cut that energy right out of you. That negative energy, done. Right? It's not in you anymore. There's a second, though, by which the offended person, the one who thinks he or she have been offended, imposes humiliating conditions to the other person to make him or he feel the weight of forgiveness that angers instead of pacifies. I'll give an example, right? So say, yeah, he does something, and then you call the person and say, person, I want to forgive you. But for me to forgive you, you gotta have to do this and that, and you gotta say this, and you gotta correct that, and then maybe then I'll forgive you. Like you were just kind of some sort of a judge in a tribunal of the umbral, right? And you basically, without any moral concept embedded into your existence, trying to tell another person that they have to follow some sort of moral rules. It's like that the blind trying to guide, it's like it just doesn't work, right? So that imposition of like, I'm only going to forgive if, that sentence has to disappear, period, from the dictionary. Like, wipe that out of your mind, because that is never good. That doesn't take us anywhere. Forgiveness is coming from you. You don't have to ask for an action from the other side. So you forgive first. If the other person needs to mend something, do something, great, let them do it, right? You can talk about it, but your forgiveness cannot be conditional to things like that, right? If you don't go into that scenario with already kind of cleaned, you already forgave, that energy that you build up between you is gone and clear. If you don't go into that prepared like that, it's like there's no forgiveness. It's not going to happen, right? It's probably going to make it worse. right? Some people get offended, some people get upset, right? You're kind of feeding the cycle again, right? If the person offers his or her hand, it's not done benevolently, but ostentatiously. Like this is the guy that's like, yeah, I forgive you, my, whatever, right? So it's like you're forgiving just to show to people that you're a really good person. That happens quite a lot. That happens in Spiritism too, by the way. So we're not immune to that. Right? In order to be able to tell that the whole world see how great I am, right? We're having that. Yeah, that happens a lot, right? In religious institutions, it happens a lot too, right? So in daily life and work, right? And like a lot of places, right? Because the true forgiveness happens in a place that people are not seeing. Like you don't even need to, like you don't need to tell anyone. Like if you have to call someone and say, I'm forgiving everyone today, I've been so good, right? That sounds like a president of another country talking about it. Like no one's ever forgave me so much in my life. No, stop that. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, how many times? That's the next question, right? So we know the passage, right? That Jesus said, no, he's like 70 times 7. It's like, in other words, being like endlessly, right? So he say, and Kardec speaks on that, and he says, not 7 times, but 70 times 7, right? That's what Jesus said. And then he continued, this is one of Jesus' teachings that should strike your mind the hardest and speak to your heart the loudest. Compare this verse of mercy with a prayer so simple, so concise, and so great in its aspiration, which Jesus gave to us, right? Which is the Lord's Prayer. And you will discover the same thought, right? Remember that Jesus will respond to Peter. So you shall forgive without limit. You shall forgive every offense as many times as is committed against you. You shall teach your brothers and sisters that forgetfulness of self, which makes them invulnerable to attack, evil behavior, and insult. You shall meek and humble heart without ever measuring your kindness. In short, you shall do for others what you want your heavenly Father to do for you. Right. Okay, let's take a break here. Yeah. So now we're trying. So what really Kardec is trying to tell us in this entire chapter, and basically the whole basis of Spiritism, is very simple, right? Is that if you don't take care of your basics first, right, it's going to be very hard for you to move on. I'll give you an example, right? So my 1.5-year-old, she definitely wanted to run downstairs when she was 8 months, right? Which is not the obvious first step, like when you're 8 months. So she walked at 8 months, and now at 14, she's now going downstairs, right? But now that she's going downstairs, she definitely wants to jump from the top of the stairs down, which some of these guys do, right? But she can't, right? So if she doesn't get the fact, and that's why we're teaching them, right? We teach them, right? To say, don't do this. We try to hold them, right? No, they stay there, come down. They don't have patience. They have patience. Upset, crying, yelling, like, oh my God, like, this is the worst thing ever done to my life. Someone has to hold my hand to go down the stairs. Don't tolerate this. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to yell from here all the way down the stairs. And when I get downstairs, I'll be happy. Right? Now, I'll take that to us now. Right? So we're trying to go this stairway of evolution, let's call it this way. Right? And then we're like, oh my God, I don't know why I don't have this. I don't have, my life. I don't know. I have problems in my life. I don't know why I have problems in my life. Like, why do I have to go to trials? Like, why do I have to struggle to achieve something? Look, I can't believe it. Why people have to why do I have to kind of move this way? Why I can't just do, oh my God, it's so terrible. Like the worst thing in the universe, right? So it's like someone, you tell an adult that, I'm really sorry, but you can't, have everything you want in life right now. You got to work for it, right? One step at a time. And they throw a tantrum right in front of you, throw yourself on the ground, start. But we do that. We do that when we're facing the trials that are set up for us in life. We do exactly like the 1.5-year-old trying to go downstairs. We do exactly the same thing. We complain and we struggle and we yell, and then we achieve it, and then we're like, oh, that's pretty cool, right? We've done that, like one step at a time, right? But we keep doing it nonsensically. Like for every single thing we do in life, we do the same kind of, oh, this is so hard, I can't believe it, right? And you can take that to little things in life, you can take that to big things in life. But we are kind of collectively behaving like a 1.5-year-old, spiritually speaking, right? So that's why when Jesus is saying this, he's basically telling us, guys, just like I do all the time, guys, stop. Just stop it, right? You need to forgive. Like, just forgive. Just like stop this blah 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 nonsense. Like, I can't do this. Like, why I forget? Just do it. Just forgive. How many times? I don't know. How many times you need? 1,000,000? So go for it, right? I'm probably like 5,000,000 times 1,000,000,000 right now. My forgiveness need, right, on my list, and I'm still working on it, right? But it's just, again, Jesus is really talking to us like, you got to take care of your basics, you got to stop complaining, you got to learn from this, you got to, right? Because the pathway of evolution is kind of all ahead of you, and for every step you're making so much noise, right? Just like toddlers do, right? That's kind of where we are right now spiritually, and we are running out of time, and I'm going to get there. Okay, so yeah, let me just finish then. So there's a few more things we can talk about. We'll come back another time to talk about this. But so there's another passage I find very nice if you guys want to read about. It's book Living Spring, right, by Chico. So there's a chapter called Forgive Always, right? And I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but if you want to really have kind of a summary of what we just talked about, that chapter is a very short chapter, like a page chapter. It's really nice. And I like one sentence. I just want to say one sentence from the chapter. It says, no matter how serious a neighbor's wrongs may seem to be, do not waste your time on criticism. We don't do this, right? Do we criticize other people? No. I'm biased. I'm trained to criticize things. As a scientist, that's what I do every day. Like, I criticize other people's work, I criticize my own work, I criticize papers, I criticize everything, right? But what's interesting is that that type of criticism can be positive. In other words, like, I'm advancing scientist by being critic of my own work. That's great, right? But it can be totally a waste of time if I'm just criticizing someone for the things that are probably I do too, right? And we're just like, oh my God, can you believe it? Right? And you go and do worse things, right? And you just keep criticizing. So, anyways, just be careful with that. So, and just to summarize the end now, and a very short story, right? From the big book Between Heaven and Earth. So, just two characters that I find quite inspirational in general. So Odila and Zomira, right? Two mothers, right? So Zomira is obviously a stepmother of anyways, I'll remember. And she's very sick. She's in bed, right? And she's being attacked relentlessly, right? By Odila. And Odila is the mother of. Come on, remember. Sandra, what's her name again? The lady? Antonina. Antonina. Yes, Antonina. No. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I forgot. Okay, I'll remember. Yeah, I think it's Antonina. Yes, and she's asking for so her mother's discarnated, stepmother's there. Stepmother's really sick, right? And now she's gonna ask for prayer to help, right? She's asking for her mother to help, but actually her mother is the one actually causing the infirmity of Zumira, right? So her mother, Odila, is an obsessor of Zumira, right? Because Zumira kind of took over her house and her family. That's how she feels, and that's such an incredible story because it's so powerful, that image, to see how that the lack of forgiveness, let's say this way, right? Between these two mothers, which actually both of them loving and caring and trying in their own best to do things, that harmony got disrupted by the fact that they kind of had this antagonic view, right? So Zumira, well, obviously was partially involved in Julia's death, which is another son's death, right, by Johnny. So obviously Odila knows that, and she's very upset. And also Odila is very upset because Zumira is now kind of, in her place, right, in her house, right. So when you start the book and reading about it, you think about Odila as like, oh, Odila is such a nasty, horrible person, right? She's all there, discarnated, like sending all this negativity toward the house, making a mess, right? It's a disaster. How can she do that, right? Like we do the same, right? But that's okay. That's another story. And then later on in the book, through some interventions, right? Odila is obviously taking to the spiritual realms to see her son Julio. She has conversation with mentors, right? She's seen the past. Now she's able to see the past a little bit and realize that Zumira and her husband, and every one of them, they were all involved before in another relationship, in another family. And she was herself also partially responsible for a lot of negative things that happened in the past, right? And now knowing that, all that information, she completely changes, forgives everyone. And now she is the benefactor or the immediate helper of the entire family. And then by the end of the book, she's actually helping everyone, including Zumira, which is the person that she, in the beginning of the book, hated so much, right? She's helping her thrive with a new family so everyone can be happy and unified again in love, right? But one single act that she was able to snap out of it, right, transformed the entire existence of this family, right, forever. And I think this book is a great example because for us, it's kind of the same thing. So that's why Kardec is saying, like, all the time, like, don't waste time on this stuff, right? Move, like, snap out of it, right? And that's what I tell this guys here, right, Daniel? I said, Daniel, snap out of it, right? So why are you so upset today? No. So I tell them, like, snap out. It's like literally, like you have to kind of take action. Do it. Don't think about it. If you're like, oh, I'm thinking about it, forgiving one day, great, but you got to do it, right? So I think that's, if you're going to summarize and make one last thing, is this is the time. The time is now. That's it. Okay. Thank you.
It's Antonina.
Antonina, yes. Antonina.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah.
I think we all need to forgive, and we all need to be forgiven. It's something that it's an exercise. It's a daily exercise in little things and big things. So the big things we tend to postpone because it's too much for this lifetime. If we can just do a little bit, it's going to help us on the next one and have a better relationship about ourselves and the other people too, right? Because it's a heaviness that when we don't do it, we carry ourselves. And in a way, the other person will also feel it because it's the energy, even if we don't say two words, but the energy that we are sending to the other person, she's going to feel it. And then we are just feeding this. And sometimes we don't want to be even close to the other person, but when we do that, we bring the other person close to us. So it's that's energy that we connect, and it's not a good energy. And as Marco said, it's the greatest opportunity that we have to really trying to transform this problem in this lifetime as much as we can. We're not perfect, but we can do it. Maybe we don't say anything to the guy that is slowing down us, but we are sending him that energy, right? We say, oh, for God's sake, just move it. And guilty as charged. But anyway, thank you so much. And we're going to open now for questions or comments. Anyone?
I do.
Thank you.
how can I know that I forgave someone? Like, I have a situation with my father. That's when the first start. And I thought in my mind that I had forgave him. Like, in my mind, okay, it's all done. We are good. We settled down. But then I saw him doing same stuff that he did to me, to my brother. And all that kind of thoughts,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
showed up again. And now I don't know
Yeah.
if I forgave him or not.
Yeah.
I don't know actually
Yeah.
what happened
Yeah.
or what to do.
That's a great question. So, I mean, for maybe if someone didn't hear, is that what happens if you kind of think you forgave someone, but all of a sudden you're exposed to a scenario where that entire emotion set comes and kicking in again, and you have questions about that, right? So this is probably one of the most common things that ever happened in forgiveness, basically, because I told you it's a process, right? So as a process, there are steps to it, right? And there are moments in that process where you can definitely get rid of that first initial kind of knee-jerking, aggressive type response. It's like, oh my God, this is like, that's the first step, right? So you kind of you blunt that, right? So you go into the second, the third steps, which are like, you start to see some positive sides of things. You start to control certain emotions, but the true forgiveness, which is a moment where you're gonna feel every time you think about person, think about the most pure type of love you can possibly imagine, like this maternal love, like loving a baby type of thing. That's as close as Jesus told us. That's kind of the closest possible we can think about the perfection of love in our existence, right? So that may take a long time. And that is a huge process to go through, right? And when you're re-exposed to the same insult again, it's super common and normal for you to revive or relieve that set of emotions that you kind of packed, right, over a long period of time. And as a process of grieving, as a process of dealing with issues, as the same process of forgiveness, you're going to have to recycle that again. And when you do it again, you actually kind of taper it down a bit more, right? And then you taper it down a bit more until you're going to get into a moment where the true forgiveness comes in that you're not even thinking about it anymore, right? So the real, true, complete forgiveness is going to happen in a moment that you're going to look at someone and all you see is like, this is my brother as a creation, my brother, and I love as my mother and son, and I love it. This is like perfection now. Like, and you can see the same problem, and there's going to be completely inert to you, right? Because you see as Jesus. It's like, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Right? So Jesus is not connected to that anymore. See, disconnected. But he can see it from the outside, right? So now do not create a scenario in which you blame or require yourself to reach that tomorrow, because that creates another problem, right? Now you have to deal with the anxiety that creates, and all the issues that that um, you're kind of asking yourself things immediately that maybe you're not be able to do. Okay, but I would say that every time you're exposed to those things, and it could be like a deep ache, it could be something really hard to deal with, right? But I can guarantee you, next time you're gonna, if you present it to that again, your response is gonna be blunted compared to the first one, and then a bit more, right? And then a bit more. And maybe you're gonna go through this in this life, and that's it, right? You're gonna deal with that. Maybe you're going to have some adjustment. It's still going to come back next time in another situation where you're going to feel that again, but now you don't have that energy again, right? And you're finally going to be able to go through it and say, okay, forgive him. He doesn't know what he's doing, just like Jesus did, right? How long it takes. For some people, 14 incarnations, like Eustachio, like 1,700 years, right? To deal with one thing, right? For other people, maybe more easier because they've been through it a lot, right? When you see the spirits in the books and all that, the spirits that are like, oh, they forgive right away, immediately, right at that time, and they get the cure, they walk away. No, it's not happening there. That is the effect of like 5,000 years of evolution of that spirit. So they got to that moment, they're cured, they're fine, they're happy, they walk away, and I forgive everyone. You don't take that as an example of what we do all the time, it's impossible. That is the end result of a very long road. So you're in that road, right? And take it. Like if you take a tiny little bit of decrease in your emotions when you deal with the consequences of what's happening right now, take that. That's positive. I take it. I think that's great. Now let's move on to the next, and the next, and let's do better now next time, right? And we'll all get there. That's the good news. Like we can tell everyone, we're all gonna get there,
Yeah.
right?
I just want to add something. Two things: expectations from him and from you, from her and from you. What are my expectations? Do I expect myself to just to forgive right away, or no? Am I good or am I bad? So there is all those expectations. And then from the other person, is the other person should be doing this, the other person shouldn't be doing this. So when we put all of these two together, we have to act like Jesus said, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. So maybe the other person doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe you don't know what you're doing. But we are blessed that we have infinity of time to just to perfect ourselves. And one day we're going to be like a high spirit that we just want to help and we just want to love no matter what. But we are not there yet. And as Marco was saying, it's a process. And be able to see your own progress in that process, even if it's a little bit, it's good enough. So take it and hold it. This is mine.
Yeah.
Okay?
There's one clear example in the Bible where Jesus forgives somebody, which is the adulterous woman. So he says, you're forgiven, but don't sin again. Go and don't sin again. What's not in the story is what happens if she sins again.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus is not going to rescind his forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to have to forgive her again.
Yeah.
It's a new act. It's a new event to be forgiven. Even the two might be related. But Jesus knows that for most people in our level of evolution, that she couldn't sin again. Right? We're not beyond that. But he has forgiven her on that act. Future is the future. Then it's a new act that we have to forgive again. We have to be careful with something I call the passive-aggressive forgiver. You say, you've forgiven somebody. And then much later, you meet them again. And in the conversation, you make a kind of a poisonous comment that takes them back to the mistake they made. And you're doing this to hurt that person because you know that they will understand what you're saying, even if other people around them does not. They know that you just did this remark to make them feel bad, which basically is proof that you didn't forgive.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Marco, so much. Marco, no, you're not sitting.
Oh, no? Okay.
Can you do a closing prayer for us? The pass is after.
Yeah, okay.
We after Luca closes.
With a closing prayer, we shut down the net.
Okay,
and then
perfect.
we do the
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right, so let us all this moment connecting our hearts and our thoughts to our Father, Mother, Creator, God, to our Master Jesus. Let us feel this energy of love flowing into this room, connecting each one of us, helping us and strengthening us, giving us the courage to take the actions that we need to forgive, to move on, to love deeply and truly, as Jesus taught us. Let us all take this energy and take this love to everywhere we go, as these bright seeds of love. They're sprouting everywhere in the world, in our homes, in our work, in our daily activities. And in doing so, we continue transforming this world, regenerating this planet and our souls. Thank you, God, for this opportunity, and so be it.
Thank you, Marco.